Welcome back, grade 12s, yes, to the third slot in today's lesson. What are we looking at? Our emphasis is the balance sheet, right? And now we're looking at the note trade and other receivables, your debtors. Remember, you would commence with your trade debtors, which is your debtors control. Your provision for bad debts, you have to calculate your new amount. Important. Right? This figure here would be in brackets because it's a negative. It's a negative asset. You'd be subtracting it. That would then give you your net trade debtors. Okay? You would bring in your prepaid expenses, your accrued income. There may be an insurance claim that you may have. Remember that one? You may have a deposit on water and electricity. So the format of this note, guys, is important. What goes into this note here? You have to know it. Then your SARS, income tax. If what has happened, if your SARS income tax ends off with a debit balance, then surely it is an asset account. They, SARS, are owing us money, and therefore it would appear under trade and other receivables. Keep that in mind. So what do? You compare your SARS income tax amount in the trial balance to the tax for the year as is reflected by my adjustment. If the amount in the balance sheet is higher than the tax for the year, then the difference between these two amounts will appear as above. In other words, in a nutshell, if we must summarize that, if your SARS income tax ends off with a debit balance, it will appear under trade and other receivables. Got that? Brilliant. Let's look at ordinary share capital. What happens here? You have your authorized amount, okay, and you're stating the number of shares and the par value of it. Then now the next step, you come to your issued. What is in your issued? It's your number of shares at the beginning of the year or the last day of the previous year, any new shares that you may have issued this year, to give you the number of shares on the closing date and the value of those shares. You always have to state the number of shares and the par value. So you're saying that's the number of shares, that's the par value of the shares, and that's the rand value of the shares. Share premium, same story. You're looking at the balance on the last day of the previous year, the number of new shares that you issued at the premium value to give you that amount, and then the closing balance on the last day of the current year, you state the number of shares and the premium on the premium account. So this would be your final balance in your share premium account. Okay. Let's look at retained income, a very important note. You start off with your balance on the last day of the previous year. In other words, your opening balance in your retained income. You have your net profit after tax, grade 12s, for the year. Then you have your ordinary share dividends, your paid amount, plus your recommended. These two added together will give you the total dividend for the year. And this is the first time you notice something strange. What is it? In my balance sheet, in this note, I'm dealing with an expense, which is dividends. Remember that in your balance sheet, in note number 9, you have to deal with your interim dividend, the amount that was paid, as well as the amount that was declared or recommended, your final dividend. So you will take that figure, subtract your dividend, and this will then give you, what will it give you? It will now give you your balance on the last day of the current year, your closing balance in that account. Got it? Brilliant. Now, the amount that is recommended for your final dividend will always be the balance of your shareholders for dividend account. Now, this one here, unlike your SARS income tax, your shareholders for dividends will always be a liability. And that is important to remember. If you look at your trade and other payables, trade creditors, old hat, you've dealt with it before. Accrued expenses, you've seen it before. Income received in advance, also called deferred income. You've seen it before. Creditors for salaries, you've dealt with it. Pension fund, you've dealt with. Medical aid fund. Now this one is new. Shareholders for dividends, right? That's the final amount that you declared at the end of the year. Then your SARS. Your SARS is a breakdown now of income tax. If it has a credit balance, SARS. PAYE, you've dealt with, and VAT, you will deal with later on in the year. So what is important to note, that if you compare your SARS account, and the bottom line is that if your SARS account has a credit balance, grade 12s, remember, it's going to appear where? Under my trade and other payables. I repeat, if your SARS income tax account ends off with a credit balance at the end, it will appear under trade and other payables. Okay, so basically what we did here was we just looked at some of the important notes that are applicable to companies. Wait for the final slot because it has important information. So take a break, have a quick stretch, and we'll be back in a while.